I'm going to take the second question too. The Turnpike Commission is reportedly $7 billion in debt, with much of the revenue going to help pay for PennDOT's transportation costs. There is concern over whether the Turnpike Commission could default on the bonds. Do you share that concern, and how do you think the Turnpike Commission should get out of debt? Also, do you think more revenue is needed to pay for the state's transportation needs, and how do you think it should be raised? And finally, are you in favor of the Turnpike Commission raising its tolls by 3% each year till 2050, as is the plan now? We'll start with Gary.
Okay. I didn't get to write down all the different parts of that question, so you well, I'll work on hitting a few, and if there's some that I missed, you can come back and remind me to hit some of the other issues. You know, Pennsylvania has a large infrastructure problem, period. You know, we haven't been paying for our roads and our bridges for a long, long time. And maintenance and repair is key. But one of the things that we do, even with the Turnpike Commission, is we spend money on other things other than the Turnpike. No different whenever the governor wanted to toll I-80. Well, you know, they said that the feds shot it down. It's like, no, the feds really didn't shoot it down. The feds said that if you wanted to toll I-80, go ahead. But you have to spend the money on what? I-80. What you're not allowed to do, which is what we do in politics too many times, is the bait and switch. We advertise things for one thing, and then we end up spending some of the money on something else. You know, we voted on whether or not we were going to have sports stadiums, and we voted no, but we got them anyway. All right. A lot of the money, again, you know, in the Turnpike, their problem came in is whenever they're now required to pay a much larger annual several $100 million a year now that they didn't have to pay before. So somebody put a mandate on them that's going there, as well as when we talk about the Turnpike Commission, a lot of that money goes to SEPTA and the PAT. All right, again, that's not the Turnpike, but again, it's you know, where all the revenues in the different revenue streams that are going. But you know, do we have to take care of our roads and our bridges? Absolutely. And you know, how do we generate the money for some of that? Well, there's several ways to do it, but none of them are pleasant, because again, what you're talking about, if you're not shifting revenue, because we can't spend more than what our income is, and a lot of things can't be deferred, so that means that people that use it have to pay for it, and whether or not that's increases on the Turnpike, and we're already seeing increases on the Turnpike rates, or increases which nobody's in favor of on gas taxes, but it's, you know, and the reason being, again, not only does it hurt us at home in the pocketbook, okay, you've got no political will to do something, because you know those are the things that become things like political suicide, as people say. All right, well, but again, that's a different issue. You know, that's the reason why I think we should have term limits, so that people are able to do the job and do what's needed and necessary, and not what's politically correct or expedient for their next re-election.
I did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that enough?
Yeah, I guess, yeah. What about, are you in favor of the Turnpike Commission raising its tolls by 3% each year till 2050? This is the plan now.
Again, I don't know if that's needed and necessary, and without seeing the study and what's there, I'm not going to give it an up and down yes or no, because again, it might not take that much time. It might not take that much of an increase. I don't know where they're actually going to go spend the money and what they're intending to spend the money on. If it's all going to be spent on roads and bridges, potentially that's good. But, you know, I don't know that.
Okay, thank you very much. Good. Tim?
Well, first of all, I think everyone in Fayette County knows I'm not a political correct person to begin with. And what did happen with the Turnpike happened a few years ago when Act 44 went into place, where the Turnpike borrowed bond money to help PennDOT, because the legislature kept kicking the problem down the road for years and years, and they're still under this administration, they do not want to talk about transportation, on how we fund transportation. I mean, this administration has to come up with a plan to get it through the legislature, because we are sitting on a crisis. Our bridges are the worst in the country. We have more road miles than anyone in the country in this state. And we have to come up with some kind of dedicated funding for PennDOT where they don't keep shifting it to mass transit or any other little agency they plan on trying to fund. But we need a dedicated funding for roads and bridges. And as far as the Turnpike, raising the tolls, they're not 7 billion, they're 9 billion in the hole. They're anywhere between 7 and 9 billion in a hole, and I don't see any other way of them being able to come out of that unless they do something with the fees in the next few years. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much.